Hotep, and welcome once again to another edition of Community Cop. My name is Noel Leader, one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, and I'm here today with a full house, all three co-hosts. First of all, Julian Harper.
Welcome.
Also, Michael Graves, a.k.a. Big Mike.
Namaste.
And of course, the great Father Lucas is with us once again.
Hotep.
All right, good to see you, Father.
Thank you.
And we'd like to welcome you once again, our viewing audience, to what we hope to be another informative program. So sit back, tell a friend, tell a foe to tune in. Those who don't have cable can watch it via the internet at ManhattanNeighborNetwork.org, and they can tune into the program. But as is customary, we like to start off acknowledging one event, one historic individual, Jomo Kenyatta, who was a revolutionary fighter in Kenya, who liberated his country against British rule, colonialism, and murder, and you know, those of you who are familiar with the history know that he was one of the founding members of an organization called the Mau Mau, which those words just in and of itself put fear in the hearts of every white that was on African soil, because the brothers was no joke. But first we'll talk about Jomo Kenyatta, and then we want to talk about unfortunate incident in our history when President Ronald Reagan invaded the independent nation of Grenada under the guise of liberating American students that were over there. So we want to watch a small clip if we can beam it up. But first, we'll start with you, Michael, about your reflections on Jomo Kenyatta. And one of the reasons why it's important for us to reflect on these historic individuals, because no one else does. And these individuals are very significant in the history of African people throughout the diaspora. But the Mau Mau as well as Jomo Kenyatta.
Well, certainly, as you point out, Noel, he led the liberation movement in Kenya to liberate Kenya from the yoke of British oppression. He was one of the leaders of a Kikuyu secret society, namely called the Mau Mau. He never publicly admitted to being one of the leaders of the Mau Mau publicly, because actually when the Mau Mau would kill enemies of its people, when it would kill British soldiers or what have you, he would sometimes even go on record and say, well, why did that happen? You know, why did they do that? Those soldiers seemed to be peaceful, weren't doing anything. I mean, he was brilliant at that, so he never publicly admitted to being one of the Mau Mau leaders, but he was truly a great liberator, a great revolutionary, and we should never forget the contributions of the great Jomo Kenyatta and his whole crew. He grew up with the crew, was here in America as a young person, and Sekou Touré and the great Asaji Fu, Kwame Nkrumah, and all of them guys. They all met at various meetings as young students and young people coming up in the world, and they read the philosophy and opinions of the great Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So they grew up influenced by Garvey, and they knew that one day that they would free their countries.
It was rather interesting that, pardon me, Jomo made it very clear that you can't liberate yourself from oppression by begging the oppressor. You had to take things in your own hand, and he did.
You know, I remember during one of Malcolm X's speeches, he talked about the Mau Mau, and he talked about Jomo Kenyatta, and you know, he said, we need one here. You know, we need a Mau Mau. And when you start talking about revolutions, when you're talking about freedom fighting, I think it is so important that we understand that on every level, our people need to understand the importance of freedom fighting. Our people need to understand the importance of a revolution to free the minds and just the physical chains that are on our people. But I think psychological and mentally, I think it's very important that we have our own revolution.
Right. And the second incident that we would like to remember, you know, I remembered vaguely, no, I remembered very well, you know, as a youngster, when the United States under President Reagan decided to invade the independent nation of Grenada and murder one of the most progressive black nationalists that we had at that particular time, in light of the fact that in his short tenure as the president of Grenada, there were so many successes, but the United States didn't like the fact that he was independent, They offered him no assistance, as many European governments do not like to see strong, independent black nations. Very rarely do they offer any black leader who is independent any assistance. So he went to where he can get the assistance. He had a good relationship with the nation of Cuba. Fidel Castro, who was one of the most progressive leaders in the history in the 20th century as it relates to liberation movements. He offered Grenada, the nation of Grenada, assistance, and the United States didn't like that. So they invaded his country under the guise that American students were there and perhaps threatened, and they went in there and murdered. There's a good film on YouTube. Let's watch a small clip, if we have it queued up, of some of the successes that Maurice Bishop had in his nation. Do we have that, producers? Okay, we might not have that right now, but Mike, we'll start off with you once again. Some of your reflections of this, of not only Maurice Bishop, you know, a very gentle spirit who was murdered by the American government.
Well, it's no question about it, and I like the way you couched it in that he was such a genuine and real beloved person. Maurice Bishop certainly was a man of his times and a great leader in his own right, revolutionary, loved the island of Grenada and its people, very much influenced by the nationalist Pan-African movement that was going on here and abroad, loved black liberation. When he first came here, he came off the plane with the Black Power salute, loved our people, loved that connection, came here to New York, spoke in Hunter. I was at that speech. It was earth-shaking. The speech, his analysis of what was going on, even talked about America's intervention into his country, and as Noel pointed out, he had a great relationship with Fidel Castro, a real progressive. I mean, we hear that term thrown around so much now, but you talking about a real progressive, you're talking about Fidel Castro.
That's right.
And he was able to strike bargains with him, and even when that invasion did go on, the construction workers that he had there from Cuba, who was building the airport, the international airport, which America did not want to happen, they defended, they got the word from Fidel Castro himself to defend the island of Grenada, and they in turn defended it, and it took days for the American soldiers, and by the way, it's really disgraceful. The other Caribbean countries who co-signed the invasion of Grenada, you know, Dominica and in a few other countries, Barbados, and the ones who did that. It's disgraceful that they did do it, and I'll just say for the record that the CIA played a role with, you know, Bernard Court and others. You know, internally, you know, there were some problems. But for what Ronald Reagan did to send the 82nd Airborne, to send the Rangers, to send the Marines, Delta Force, all of the top special forces to attack an island that had maybe 80-something thousand people. That's the amount of people you see at an average football game. And so to attack them with all those forces was unconscionable.
You know, just carry on the tradition of American presidents, which we see today, that you lie, that they were saving U.S. students. There was not one complaint that they could put their finger on for U.S. students who was complaining. So that was simply, again, another lie excuse to justify the unjustifiable. And it was very disappointing to me because I was supposed to visit Maurice the week after and when the assassination took place. So, you know, we have a terrible history in this country, and one day the chicken is going to come home to roost.
All right, so those two, that individual, that event, we like to reflect on Community Cop, the murder of one of our great leaders, Maurice Bishop, and of course the independent movements in Kenya led by Jomo Kenyatta, who was born 10/20 in 1893. Two good films to watch on YouTube. One of them is called The Panama Deception, because the United States invaded and murdered Panamanians as well, President Reagan. And also the CIA coup of Venezuela, you know, another great nation United States attempted to, they did organize a coup, but the people rose up and defeated the CIA coup. And by the way, your police commissioner was in Venezuela the day that the coup went down, and not only was he in Venezuela, but he was with one of the leaders of the coup, which was a police leader who was ultimately arrested. And our police commissioner, Bratton, was told to get out of Venezuela. A lot of people don't know that. He was in Venezuela the day the coup went down. But anyways, those two incidents, Jomo Kenyatta and the invasion of Grenada. Issue number one, we want to reflect on an incident we talked about last week, the Michael Dunn case in Florida. He was given life, as a result of being convicted of murder and 3 attempted manslaughters, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Julian, Father, we'll start with you. I'm sorry. What was your thoughts on Michael Dunn? That's the individual who was involved in a shooting of 4 black teenagers after he claimed that their music was so loud and he thought they had a gun in the vehicle, so therefore he shot.
He thought they had a gun. Yeah. I kind of think that they brought some semblance of justice in order to make up for Trayvon, which was absolutely horrendous. And but you couldn't escape this one, because here you are blindly shooting at a car with 4 individuals in it on the basis of their music was too loud. They're crazy.
Right. And Julian, right after he shot and killed one youth, he went to his hotel room with his girlfriend, ate some pizza, drunk, and never called authorities, never notified that he was involved in the shooting, which I imagine and contributed to, a revelation of his mindset. Total disregard.
Right. And I think it's important that as these incidents occur, that there's a real eye kept on how law enforcement deals with our community, how there is a real attack, and not just by law enforcement, but there's a real attack on young African males and females. I think that we have to pay attention to how they respond to us, and we also need to look at what our response is to their response. I think that the attack is so vicious, but we've become very callous in our response, and not individually, but sometimes collectively. That our responses that we become so callous that our response aren't what they should be when we look at how we deal with the attacks on our community. So I think we have to really be vigilant when we look at it throughout the nation and even globally.
Now, I agree so much with what you just said, Julian. Certainly, when we hear news of something horrific, it does not affect us the way it probably would have affected us 20 years ago. So I agree with you that we've become numb to some of these things. I think that the message that's being sent in Florida is a very cold message when you see Trayvon Martin, who the evidence was much more overwhelming that he murdered Trayvon Martin. It wasn't self-defense. And so, because we're talking about a stand your ground state where they have the castle laws in full effect, and this guy, Michael Dunn, tried to use the castle laws, the stand your ground law, in his defense, but it didn't work. So I think the message they were telling him is to complete the task that's in front of you. I think the difference in him and Trayvon is that there were 3 survivors in that van, as opposed to with Trayvon was not in the position to tell you what really happened. So the fact that 3 of those guys lived and he killed one of them is the very reason why he got the sentence that he got, because they're telling people, finish the job. And that's what I truly believe, that the difference in the court system was that there was another side to the story, and those guys were able to say and speak on their behalf, as opposed to Trayvon Martin, who could not speak.
And I'll tell you what's really scary, just based on what Michael just said, and I agree with you, Michael. The incident of the young man who was shot in South Carolina, who was exiting his vehicle after the police officer told him to show his identification, and once he reached back into the car to get his identification, he was shot by the police, by that officer. That officer, I think, was sentenced to, if I remember correctly, 20 years. But he was indicted. He was definitely indicted. But what's important is that the young man who was victimized by that officer had an opportunity to tell his story. So what's scary is that at least in my mind, is that if our youth or someone is killed by the police, then it seems that there is no conviction in the case. But if we have been and are fortunate enough to live and have an opportunity to tell our story, then there may be a conviction. I don't see, other than the opportunity to testify, when we have a clear picture of what happened, and whether there's a video or there's testimony, if the victim or the person that was, and sometimes it's assassinated by either a police officer or someone else, if they don't have an opportunity to tell their story, then it seems that there's no conviction.
And certainly, just to let you know that that's not geographical, it's right here in New York. Real quickly, Luima was able to tell his story. Police officers went to jail. Diallo could not tell his story. Police officers were exonerated. So I'm just saying that that's that dynamic, that constant dynamic in effect. And you know, Sean Bell, there's just instances where if the person does not live, you're in a better position to create some mythical reality, as opposed to when that person is alive and able in a courtroom to testify against you, it becomes problematic.
All right. Many people know that November 4th is Election Day. And some people say that it's a big day because the Democrats or the Democrats might lose, the House, and that would some feel give the Republican Party momentum for the next presidential election. But be it as it may, in Texas, on Saturday, the Supreme Court upheld Texas' ability to institute the stringent identification laws, and some, including the U.S. Circuit Judge in Texas named Noel Gonzalez, who first turned down the law, stating that it was a clear attempt to slow down the black and Latino vote and even poor whites. But the Supreme Court have overturned her decision and said that they can use these stringent laws. Father Lucas, to a lot of people, these laws remind us of the poll tax, as it relates to an opportunity. Now, in a country which lauds itself as being democratic and believing in the democratic process, which we know is not true because the Founding Fathers never intended for everybody to vote. The vote was specifically geared towards white men.
With property.
With property, rich white men, white poor men weren't even intended to vote. So, we have a fairy tale history, and this particular Supreme Court decision is just from a long line of decisions which prohibit the black and brown and poor whites' ability to vote in large numbers, or an attempt to obstruct that.
And it's very interesting. I don't recall any of the media carrying the statement of, in fact, she made her own, Beta Ruth Ginsburg, who really laid it out, pretty much what you said. Mm-hmm. And Sotomayor joined that dissent. And, something like that, you would think that some media would have carried it.
Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that those who are in positions of power, either financially or through business, and even through government, are not seeking or willing to allow the masses to utilize their ability and their given right to use their vote as they see fit. The abuse of the political power that goes on is totally out of control, and I think that if we start to operate from a position of I guess, on a small note, we start utilizing our local political power to ensure that we can control the larger, on a state level and on a federal level, our power, then I think we'll be able to slowly gain some kind of momentum and control when we start talking about ensuring that our votes are being heard and everyone's votes being heard. But as long as we allow the powerful mechanism of big business and corrupt elected officials to remain in control, will be continually subjected to this.
Well, it's no doubt about it, and I concur with everything that's been said on this so far. I think these are all aspects of the Southern strategy, and this is what the Republican Party has been using since going back as far back as Nixon and certainly Reagan. They all use different aspects, whether it's the Willie Horton, whether it's gerrymandering, whether it's voter nullification. These are all tools of white supremacy, but specifically under the philosophy of the Southern strategy that was done out of conservative think tanks. Just ways to deconstruct and destabilize the black community. So these are all machinations that they have utilized. They've crunched the numbers and they know just where to go and what to do. They know just to take off 10, 20, 30%, because some people are not going to spend $20, $25 for an ID card because that would disrupt their budget. Some people won't do that. Some people will not stay on those long lines because they don't have those normal 2-3 weeks that they've traditionally had to vote. And now that the early voting has been taken out of certain states, they know it will affect. The Sunday voting is being taken out of certain southern states where traditionally right after church, everybody would go vote with their short lines, just go and vote. They realize they've really done their homework on how the black voting patterns, and they're disrupting that.
And I agree with Michael with this being a southern strategy, but I think it's becoming more of a northern strategy as well. I think it's being...
No. It's called the southern strategy.
No.
It's done in the north.
No, exactly. That's why I'm just trying to... ensure that everyone understands that this is just a nationwide ploy and plot. So,
Yeah,
because we experienced...
Oh, you just I see what you're saying.
Right.
In case other people didn't get it. Got it.
You saw how well it worked in Ohio in the last election.
Right, exactly. And we've seen the way it worked in New York City. I mean, you have billionaire Bloomberg. You had 2 referendums of New York City citizens saying we want term limit, and he was able to supersede the vote of the electorate. You had, what's this guy's name upstate, Tom Golisano, when in New York State, when he interrupted the democratic process where the Democrats controlled the state Senate, and he used his money and his influence to pay off 3 Democrats who went on the Republican side and caused chaos. So the electoral process, I've always said, rich white men with power, they don't believe in democracy, they don't believe in capitalism, they don't believe in Christianity, they believe in power. And they will go along with Christianity, they will go along with democracy, they will go along with capitalism as long as it empowers them. But the minute any of these philosophy or any philosophy period challenge their power, they no longer support it.
And that's why I was talking, I'm sorry, Mike, and that's why I was talking about when we start addressing the local issues, because as you stated, now we had a city council that allowed Bloomberg to do what he did. If we ensure that the people that were in those positions were people that operated from a position that will include the thoughts and the philosophies and the needs of the electorate, then that wouldn't have happened.
And I agree with what you said, Noel, about white men only respect power because it's not even a Democratic and Republican thing.
Exactly.
Both Democrat and Republicans sat down together to destroy the career of Cynthia McKinney.
That's right.
So when they gerrymandered her out of her district, whites, whether Democrat or Republican, were all on the same page that she must be removed from the halls of Congress.
One of the most progressive congressperson our community ever produced.
I think you also can't eliminate money and power when they go together with these white folks. And, well, I lost that.
And the Democratic Party didn't help, did not help Congressman Powell when the Republicans came at him. Those Southerners, most of them were Democrats. Most of them were Democrats, but I'm just saying he didn't have anywhere to turn when your own party, those Dixiecrats, all moved on Congressman Powell. The Republicans, they all moved on him, so they were all on the same page, similar to what happened to Cynthia McKinney.
And as Malcolm said, a Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat. There's no difference between the two. But did you find your thought yet? Okay. But this, it's like I said, it's historical data, and it's a history of fairy tales. When you go in school and they have civic courses talk about how democracy works, it's all garbage. But an old story that we talked about last week, the update on the Rubenstein allegations of forced sexual behavior. Michael, you have an update for us on that story?
I just wanted to say that I listened last week to the National Action broadcast on Saturday, and Reverend Sharpton had characterized those who are raising the questions that we are as doubters. And I'm just saying to the National Action Network that there's nothing more serious than securing the safety of black women and black children. There's nothing more sacred. And you have to remember that there was a time in Montgomery that there was a great black man, one of the greatest black preachers we ever produced. And no, not Dr. King. It was Vernon Johns, Reverend Vernon Johns. And Reverend Vernon Johns was standing literally almost by himself, not the NAACP, who was strong in Montgomery. There was no Montgomery Improvement Association at that time. There were other black churches, but Vernon Johns was going after white men who was raping black women, and the White Citizens Council got fed up with it. And these were the ones who were blowing up churches, White Citizens Council, as well as the Klan and all of them, but the White Citizens Council were the stronghold. They had the stronghold in Montgomery, and they went after Vernon Johns, and his church told him to either let this one go. When this young girl, who was a teenager, like about 16 years old, was raped, she identified the white person who raped her, and the church would not support it. And since he insisted on that they got to back this little girl, he was removed from his office as the pastor of that church. And they were looking for somebody very, very conservative, and they ended up getting the guy that changed the whole South, Dr. Martin Luther King. Came shortly after Vernon Johns. So the people would not back that young sister, and I'm saying now that with all the radio talk show hosts, whether the print media, they're all being locked down by Reverend Sharpton, who has that kind of influence, and certainly the white press. They're not interested in any black woman who says their white man raped her. It's a shame, it's a crime, and I'm just saying that if Reverend Johns, Vernon Johns, could do that in the midst of white supremacy, where his life could be taken because they was blowing up and bombing black churches back then, and for him to take that risk to stand up for a teenager, Reverend Sharpton should do likewise.
All right, another issue that's very prominent in the press is the Ebola pandemic that's occurring in West Africa. One of the things that I guess I wasn't surprised. Barack Obama takes a lot of heat. I don't care what he does. Now, I'm not a Barack Obama fan. But when you look at the media, they raise up, and they have a ability to raise up a frenzy amongst American citizens. Here we had an incident where an individual came from West Africa, and somehow 2 nurses that treated him were infected, and the press is going wild, putting in the minds and the hearts of American citizens that we're experiencing an epidemic, and they're trying to find fault. What did the Obama administration do or didn't do? Father, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts? Whatever you want to think about what's going on with this Ebola pandemic, and then the American response here.
I'm very suspicious.
As you should be.
Yes. That this may have been brought on. It just doesn't make sense that so quickly and so many at one time. I kind of wondered too about the initial slowness of the Obama administration to respond. And then I had to contrast, really, when you sent a team of 4 medical personnel, and then you look over there at little Cuba, where they sent a team of 250 medical personnel.
Well, we didn't hear that in the white media.
No.
Yeah.
Cuba is definitely a friend of Africa.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, first of all, for me, I kind of concur with Father Lucas. Ebola isn't new. This isn't something that just started 2 months ago. Excuse me. But I think that our response, I don't know whether it's adequate or not. Well, I actually don't think it's adequate, but I think that, as Noel stated, the blame is always going to go to the president. I think they'll attack him on anything. But I think that we have to really think about how this government and this country should respond to what couldn't possibly become a pandemic that gets out of control. I think that besides the president being held accountable, I think that we have to look at the entire response globally. So I think we should just keep our eyes and our ears open and make sure that we don't get caught up in the frenzy of the media and allow this hysteria to become more important than actually dealing with what can possibly happen pandemically with this particular disease?
Well, I think that certainly Dr. Randy Short, who's done a few exposés on it, has pointed out, going back months ago, I remember when he was talking about the Marburg disease that was developed in Germany, going back 40, 50 years ago. It was developed there, and it's this very same disease. As a matter of fact, I think America now has the patent on it, if not Germany. I think America has the actual patent on the Ebola virus, and certainly I think that this is something that's man-made. It was done there in Germany, and this is something that now they will use for to remove populations. And I agree with Father Lucas so much that when these diseases have reared its ugly head, the classic example is always Cuba, whether it was with the way they controlled the AIDS virus when they got infected some Cubans with it, which I think was a plot anyway, the way they did it with the swine flu, and even when they've had natural disasters, the way a poor country can move the entire island, from everybody from one side of the island to the other with meager resources, only shows you that they've thought these things through, and they have a better way than this high technology that you see here. So even though no Americans have died here, they're using this as a scare. But if the problem is in those 3 West African countries, then why don't they send the aid, the proper aid, to more or less show them how to, secure it?
All right, those are some of the issues that we've discussed. We want to discuss today. We have our phone lines open at this time. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hey, what's going on, brother? This is Brother Leonard.
Where you calling from, Bernard?
Oh, well, I'm calling from Manhattan. What's up, Brother Noel? What's up, Brother Michael?
Hey.
What's up, Father Lucas and Brother Harper?
Hotel,
How you doing,
brother.
brother?
Quick question or
I just
comment?
want to say, I was ended up basic training on the onslaught of Grenada. And we didn't have newspapers, but in the company area, we had what's called a war board. And on this board, would tell you about all the conflicts and everything else. So when I started advanced individualized training, they were saying that our company, I was in the infantry, was going to be going to Grenada. When we found out that Fidel had started busting up the Marines, it had started to turn from us going to fight, of us going to be recognizant by picking up these Marines, because they were shooting them out of the sky. That's how bad Fidel was.
Mm-hmm.
But once I graduated, we went somewhere else. But on the base, when you go down to the PX and sit down and have a couple of beers or whatever, you see the other guys who are actually located on the base, who are, active duty personnel, coming back from different occupations or whatever. And they were stating how they wasn't fighting students. You understand how they weren't, there wasn't a threat. So then next thing you know, you didn't see these guys. Like they weren't able to socialize with us.
Right, okay.
So now it became a separatism. Now when we talk about nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare, that's also taught in the military. And we know now that all of our Ebola virus and everything, they have patents on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have been using these different chemicals either through air, through subway, even in New York for 20 years.
Okay,
that's right.
Okay.
The outcome and adverse effects that they had on people.
That's right.
Okay,
so
brother.
I just want to say this stuff has started a long time ago, only because I've been prior military, I know about this.
Right.
But people need to know that when it comes here, white folks get afraid.
Right. All right, brother. We got a lot of phone calls.
They don't care.
Brother, we got your point, brother. We got a lot of phone calls. Thank you for the point that you made, though.
Peace, brother.
Okay,
Take
peace,
care.
brother. All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, Brother Kareem. Assalamu alaikum. How y'all brothers doing?
All right, brother.
How you feeling?
Yeah, brother. I just want to say this, brother. We know that this is a racist country. That's the policy. They've been doing this for 500 years to our people. The people in the Congress and the people like Bachman and all these different whiteys, they are the ones that's pushing up this killing of our people. But this is their nature. If we don't stand up and do anything about it, they're going to keep on doing it.
Right.
Second of all, brother, they trying to get this guy, they killed Michael Brown off, right? because it said something about his blood was in the car and on his uniform and this and that. What the hell does that mean? The man shot him in the car, got out the car and killed him. Right. Second of all, Eric Holder, right, says he's retiring. How are you going to retire when all this is going on and what is Obama doing about it?
Right.
They're voting. What are they doing? They stop us from voting.
Right.
We got to come together, brother, and realize that the only way we're going to defeat these devils is come together and fight together and stand up as men. If we don't do that, we need to just go sit out the way and stop talking.
But okay, brother. All right, brother. I got it, brother. Thank you for your call. I got a lot of phone calls on. Okay.
Real quickly, brother, just remember that a police vehicle is a protected zone. The reason why they're using that is because it's a great strategy. Even though that police officer isn't talking, he's having other people speak for him. And if they can establish that Michael Brown's hands were in that vehicle, then he's out of pocket because no one is allowed to reach into a police vehicle. It's a protected zone in all 50 states. Therefore, that's part of a brilliant strategy, you know, that the cops are employing.
Well, you know, it ain't gonna work because you got shot out the vehicle.
Right.
So they can say, I don't know what happened inside of the vehicle, but he was shot outside the vehicle. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how they explain that. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Model Test family, this is Vernon Wells.
Hotel, one of the founding members of 100 Blacks Law Enforcement Care. I was going to do it before we close, but why don't you tell them before you make your comment about a program that's coming up real quick.
All right, just to let everybody know, as Noel always speaks about organizing, this is your opportunity to come out to a public forum sponsored by 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Care, along with the African Village Study Group of New York City. We're going to have an understanding the use of deadly force and the elimination of black males. It's going to be open to the public. It's going to be open to all people to bring their family and their friends. We're going to have a panel discussion and a film viewing, as Noel is showing that flyer and whatnot. So if those are interested, there's a number that you see out there.
No, give the number, name and address, Vernon.
And it's going to be this Thursday at Restoration Plaza, 1368 Fulton Street, Brooklyn, New York, between New York and Brooklyn Avenue. Starts at 6:30 p.m.
Say it again.
October 23rd, 2014.
Say it again, Vernon.
Yes.
Say it again.
Excuse me?
This Thursday.
Yeah, this Thursday, October 23rd at 6:30 p.m. All right, we're looking for
Restoration.
It's going to be the police officer is going to be there to discuss. We're looking for Brother Noel and Brother Julian also to be on that panel if all things go correct. And we have a couple other police officers that are also scheduled to be there. I want to really quick comment to thank y'all for having the best program of information on TV today. I like the holistic approach. It's beautiful when Mike can go back and give a historical perspective. You have the Father Lucas, you yourself, Noel, and Brother, let's see that.
Julian.
I know I love y'all, brothers. The point that you pointed out about politics is dynamite. It's important for us to control our local politics. I know y'all got a lot of calls, so I'm going to get off and let you go ahead on.
All right, thank you for your call, brother. Don't forget, that's tomorrow at Restoration Center.
Thursday.
I'm sorry, today not Wednesday? Oh, yeah, we're on a Tuesday. It's Thursday at Restoration, right in the heart of Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Fulton in New York.
Workshop. All right, but next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Oh, okay. How y'all doing, Community Cop family? Brother Ray.
Hotel, brother.
All right, how y'all doing? Listen, I just want to say this Ebola thing is, for me, is Ebola bullshit. They create a disease, they kill up some black people, and then they get everybody going crazy. The stock on it already went up on the stock market. It went up. Number two, I want to say that I saw the commercial that the governor endorsed some women's independent political party. And I started thinking back how the Democrats and these black flunkies did their best to stop the Freedom Party when we already had all them votes and everything. We had the signatures to get the independent Black Freedom Party on the ballot. That's number two. And number three, I am still disgusted. Let me ask you, do you think if one of these Jews will have raped an Italian woman or an Irish woman or anybody else at some party, that the member of that organization will have been quiet and not said anything. They will have dragged him out and beat his head into the ground. But this greasy bum from the National Action Network and them people at the National Action Network should be shot with shit and put in jail for state.
Right. All right, brother. Thank you for your phone call. You're entitled to your opinion. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Where you calling from, brother?
I'm from Harlem.
Hotel, quick question or comment?
All comments about the National Black Network and,
Yeah.
and about the police.
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
brother.
Hello?
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
brother.
Hold on.
All right, next caller, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
How you doing?
Hotel.
My name is Joel.
Quick question or comment, brother?
My comment is about my question or comment.
All right, can we go to the next phone call in the room? Can we go to the next phone call, please?
The network don't help the people in the community because I went down there one day, right, and it had something going on in it. And I'm from this community. I live right around the corner from it, and they wouldn't let me in.
Well, okay. All right, thank you for your phone call, brother. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hotep Brothers calling from Harlem.
Hotel, brother.
Yes, just quickly about the Michael Dunn situation. I mean, black people really shouldn't be too happy about that either, even though he was convicted and sentenced, you know, but I just think that if he was a police officer, he'd be at home having dinner right now.
You're right.
And number two, I called in last week at the end of the show, and I wanted you all to give out some information because people need to be aware of what these cops are doing to people that are driving on the highway, how they're stopping them, pulling them over, and if they have cash on them, and if they can't prove that the cash is quote-unquote for legitimate purposes, then they're literally stealing their money. I think that last year, police departments made about $2.5 billion of confiscated cash, taking money from people, and obviously it's more expensive to fight the case, so people just basically don't do anything about it, and they've literally made billions of dollars from stealing people's money. So if you all could just give a little bit of information so people could be aware of what these cops are doing, how they're literally committing highway robbery. Peace, brother.
Well, before you answer, Mike, real quick, one of the things the community can do on Thursday at 5 o'clock, Restoration Center, is understanding the use of deadly force and the elimination of black males. That's this Thursday, 5 o'clock at Restoration Center on Fulton Street in the heart of Brooklyn.
Yeah, I was going to say that we can get more in depth in that Thursday at Restoration Center at 6:30. But what the caller is saying is totally accurate. This is going on nationwide, and even Canada now has started doing it. They're stopping black men, especially if you have a late model vehicle. They're taking all the cash out of your pocket. They've taken several $1,000s that a person has on them. If you're driving a late model car, especially if you're young, their attitude is you obviously are doing something wrong if you can afford a late model car and you have a lot of cash on you. So they're looking at it as drug money, potential drug money. So they're taking the car, they're even taking some vehicles, and they're locking the person up. And by the time you use whatever resources you have to get out of jail, you're not even trying to get your money back, and sometimes even not the vehicle. It's just a nationwide thing that's going on, and the caller's right. It is adding up to billions of dollars because it's going on in all 50 states, and even Canada's doing it now.
I think, well, she's not surprised about Canada there, never mind. But I think that business about the assume that you're dealing with drugs, that's just an excuse. This is just pure out and out robbery.
Right. All right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from the Rockaways. Good evening to the brothers. How you
Hotel,
doing?
brother.
Right.
Quick question or comment?
Good. My niece Keisha told me about the patent of Ebola, and it tells me that somebody invented it. And then Sunday, Minister Farrakhan, Honorable Minister Farrakhan, when he spoke from Kingston, Jamaica, he spoke about the Ebola being patented. Brothers, when I look at our history, a lot of people of us, amongst us, is not found the blueprint that was given to us for our total liberation. As I watched the roofs of my children for 7 years straight, at the end of the roof, as Chicken George was leaving out of the last plantation, his wife stopped him and she said these words. She said, "This ain't never been our home. This is old masters and niggers' quarters." And I'm just waiting for the marching orders to get out of this country with my believers, sisters and brothers. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your call, brother. Thank you for your call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah.
Where you calling from, caller?
Hello?
Yes, where you calling from?
Oh, I'm calling from the Bronx.
Hotel, brother.
Okay,
All right.
This is me, Al. I called and I asked you last time I called about is this the plan and everything, and I've been watching and this brings me back to a few core scriptures, because when Moses was born, they always looked after, they said they were going to kill the firstborn because they knew he was the Messiah, was going to bring the people out of bondage. Same process with Jesus. Harold wanted to kill Jesus when he was born. Now, we into today, and all I see is that all the young brothers today that are dying, they're aiming at turning into homosexuals and all of this stuff that's going on. They are so transparent, I can see them. And I just want to say that if you could follow through and everything that you're saying, I agree 100%, and I appreciate you brothers for doing your thing, and thank you.
All right, thank you for your call from the Bronx.
Last week, Noel pointed out biological warfare was utilized against Native Americans. He talked about the smallpox, the clothes, the blankets that was used. He talked about the poisoning of the water and things like that. So there's a history there, and certainly he even talked about, I think,
Agent
Rex
Orange.
84.
Yeah.
He talked about Agent Orange, and the other thing was napalm.
Yeah.
Those things like that.
Napalm.
So chemical agents and America is as American as apple pie.
Right, and when you talk about the King Alfred plan, those who want to watch a good film on YouTube, Dr. Ray Hagans talks about the King Alfred plan, a very good speech. So if you want more information about the intentions of the United States as well as other European nations as it relates to Africa, you can look it up. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Where you calling from, caller?
Yeah, I'm calling from New York.
Okay, Hotep, sister.
Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, you heard of the Bush's preemptive strike against Iraq, right?
Right.
Here we have preemptive incarceration. Now, what is preemptive incarceration? That's the rich people saying, before those poor black kids come into our neighborhoods to rob us, let's go to their neighborhoods and put them all in jail.
All right. Well, it's funny that you talk about the incarceration, Father. We were talking earlier about Namir Abu Jamal, where the governor has said that he's going to pass some law which is designed to mute Brother Jamal, who's in prison, accused of murdering a police officer when there's so much conflicting evidence to show that he didn't do it. Why don't you talk about the governor's in Philadelphia's decision?
Well, it's the state that will pass the law.
Pennsylvania, I'm sorry.
Pennsylvania will pass the law, and the governor said he's going to sign it. Obviously, if you look at what the polls are projecting, the governor is in bad shape in the election coming up. So he knows it's ridiculous, and by the time it reaches the court, it should be thrown out. But by that time, you will have silenced Mumia for well over a year.
Well, it might not get thrown out, Father Lucas, because he's got most of the state is on board with it, and the blacks that are part of the state assembly, they're not saying anything about it because they're saying that he killed the cop. Consequently, that shuts down black folks right away. They're not going to defend Mumia on that, and they're saying that it's opening old wounds when he speaks before a graduating class.
That's what those who are writing the law are saying.
Those who are writing the law, because he just spoke before a graduating class, and they're saying that how can this convicted killer who killed a cop be allowed to speak before a graduating class? So they're saying it's opening their own wounds and bringing trauma to the family of that police officer. Consequently, legally, they should shut him down so he will not be allowed to communicate, because he does radio shows and the like, and they intend to shut him down now so he won't be able to communicate to anyone.
I think when it comes to court, it will have to be thrown out. It was totally unconstitutional.
Right.
And it's not just Mumia now, but anybody who's incarcerated.
Right.
So
it'll affect everybody.
And this just shows you, listen, white people with power do not believe in freedom of speech, don't believe in no constitution. Whenever they feel not empowered or someone else is empowered by these laws, they want to change the law and change the rules. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Manhattan.
Hotep, sister, quick question or comment?
A comment is that I hope that all your callers from Assalamu Alaikum and the Hotep people are registered voters, Because if they're not registered voters, they're not going to be able to vote and vote anybody in or out of office. As a comment about Ebola, that's supposed to be some disease that was caught from the jungle from animals, which probably is not true.
Right.
And I think somebody should think, how can it be physically possible unless the man is taking Viagra for a 70-plus-year-old man to sexually assault anybody? It's possible, but I doubt it.
Well, did you read the part that he was using instruments in his house and that the police officers were able to gather those instruments? You don't have to be sexually potent to use instruments, especially if it's true that he utilized some date rape drug to drug the person, and then you're using instruments that can be commonly found in anyone's house.
All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Hotel. Where you calling from, caller?
I'm calling from Harlem.
I forgot for a second. Quick question or comment?
I'm a good question. I got a good comment. Hello?
Go ahead, brother.
Now, I just want to say God bless all y'all people and stuff like that.
Thank you. God bless you too, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. God, have a nice day.
Okay, likewise.
Right.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
God bless you too, brother. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hotep, how you doing, fellas?
Where you calling from, brother?
I'm calling from sunny, hot Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, wow. Where you?
Yeah, I've been out of town. I had to come out here on some family business, but I finally had a chance today. I had access to a computer. I said, let me turn you brothers in and catch up on a lot of stuff I've been missing since I've been out here.
Right.
And I have been reading on the paper online about Rubenstein, and man, I can't believe it, but it's funny how... Let's see how he's going to come out of this, with clean hands or what, you know?
Right.
I see Alton was, you see how he's got suspended over nonsense, but Rubenstein will keep his license and will keep on carrying on,
right.
I'm sure. And I'm surprised I didn't see none of you guys' pictures at Reb's party at the Waldorf. Where were you guys at? I'll check y'all out in a couple of weeks when I get back in town.
Okay, brother. Thanks for calling, brother. Arizona. Thanks for calling. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Next caller, you on the air. Okay, did we lose our callers? Okay, that was very interesting.
I'd like to just respond to what the sister said. You should not utilize a person's age and say they are bereft of being able to do a certain crime because of their age. That's not, if the sister said, in fact, identified the perpetrator, and the hospital said she was sexually abused, the police officers have gathered a mountain of information, then how can you say because of his age that means he's exempt from a certain type of crime? No good.
And as it relates to the Europeans, including the United States, utilization of chemical warfare against people of color, I mean, that's historic. It's consistently, they never stop. You know, I remember in South Africa where they had the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, you know, you had South African white doctors admitting that they were in laboratories trying to develop bacteria and viruses that affect black people and don't affect white people.
Right.
You know, so this is not only South Africa. You know, there's a long history. There's a good book, Medical Apartheid.
Yes.
You know, it's a history. I mean, you can't make it up about these people. You know, and they haven't changed. And I've always said that the sons and daughters of our former slave masters are no better than their fathers and mothers. They're the same.
Experiment.
You know, there's the same. Excuse me, the Tuskegee experiment. There's been hundreds, literally, of experiments done by white supremacists with the ulterior motivation of murdering African people and non-white folks. I mean, they've been engaged in homicide and genocide to non-white people for hundreds and hundreds of years. Right. You know, so we should not be afraid of talking about a conspiracy, especially when they can produce a document called the King Alfred Plan, which literally talks about the extermination or depopulation of the African continent when there's natural resources that they want, but there are people inhabiting the land. They talked about excess populations, but all right, we have to close at this point. Julian, close the comments.
You know, I mean, it's so important that we really keep our eyes and ears open to the atrocities that are happening and how they're affecting African people. When we talk about politics, you know, politics are running the way they're run, but if we're going to try to make some changes, I think we have to really get involved locally to address those issues. Dad, I love you. Karen, I love you. Our prayers are with both of you. we got a lot of work to do, people. Let's just keep on going.
To Sister Karen and to Mr. Harper, certainly stay in God's unchanging hand, and big ups to Julian. I could see that he's being taxed by being here, but big ups for being here. Reinstate automatics, and let's look forward to Thursday, the program with 100 Blacks / African Village. Any questions you have, let's save those questions for Thursday, 6:30, Restoration Center.
Malcolm was 100% correct. We need here a Mau Mau.
Mau Mau movement. On behalf of Community Cop, we'd like to thank our producers, Nat Woods, Sheila Berry, Veronica Kitt, and Brother Nolan. Brother, I forgot your last name again. I get it next week. Brother Nolan, and as well as acknowledging Mr. Harper and my sister Karen. Also Sierra, one of our assistant producers, let's call her. Her mother is ill. Sister Sierra, our prayers go to you and your mother. Hopefully she feels better. Thanks for watching, Little Mo. I love you. See you next Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Don't forget Thursday at 6:30 or 6 o'clock
6:30
at Restoration Plaza in the heart of Bedford-Stuyvesant on Fulton Street. See you next Tuesday, 5 o'clock in Phoenix, Arizona. Please, when you come back, bring us some sun. Thanks for watching. Knowledge to the wise. I think it's time to say peace.